Hello and very welcome everybody to another very special interview episode, number 2, on Random Urban Memories with only one of your rum boys today, and that's me, Shane. So what I got for you today, fresh out the kitchen, slab off the menu, is an interview with the co-hosts of the podcast Oh No RossCarrie. That is Carrie Poppy and Ross Blocher. And what their podcast, or what Oh No RossCarrie is, it's an investigations podcast in which they jump in, put under the microscope, and investigate claims of, the paranormal, fringe science, fringe groups, religions, all those kind of things that you might be skeptical about. And their tagline being, "We show up so you don't have to," and that is a literal description of what they do. They insert themselves into these groups, they attend marches, they attend meetings, conferences, all of these kinds of things, and then report from the inside on an episode by episode basis. And it is fascinating stuff, it is eye-opening stuff, and they have two wonderful characters that actually do shine through the audio as you're listening to it. And I have to say I find it one of the best investigations podcasts in the world. So I would highly recommend you go and find it on any of your podcasting platforms. Search for Oh No RossCarrie, and then boom, off you go, and let your mind be blown. I'm gonna rock on with this. Just gonna give you a quick reminder. Find us on any social media platform. Just search for Random Urban Memories. Like, share, be so kind, do those things, and we will keep producing. Well, without further ado, I hate that phrase. Here we go, and thanks again.
This is Random Urban Memories, brought to you by The Rum Boys. You've seen, heard, or felt it on the streets. Well, we're here to talk about it.
In 3, 2, 1.
Okay, folks. Thank you very much for joining me. On the line, I have Carrie Poppy and Ross Blocher. As per the intro, I gave you a little bit of a rundown of them and their podcast. So guys, from the horse's mouth, you directly tell us who you are.
Oh, man.
Well, hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us on. I am Ross.
I'm Carrie.
And we are part of the podcast Oh No RossCarrie. We investigate fringe science, spirituality, claims of the paranormal, anything where the science on it is not quite resolved, or maybe it is and people don't realize that yet. And we check it out firsthand and report back.
That's right.
That's fantastic. All right, so doing these background checks, doing these investigations, what are the circumstances that actually propelled you into the skeptic side of things, wanting to do these investigations?
Well, I'd always had an interest in the paranormal, even when I was Christian as a kid. I was raised in the evangelical church, but I would also be buying at the Scholastic book fairs every copy I could find of a book about, like ghosts or aliens or cryptozoological creatures. But in college, I left my faith. That's a whole story in and of itself. But I still was interested, in fact, maybe even more interested in belief. And I joined a group that offers a cash prize if anyone can prove that they have psychic or paranormal abilities. And then I met Carrie. And at the time we were both I was a podcast listener, but we were both attending this book club and going to lectures together. And at one point, Carrie asked, "Hey, who wants to join me for this astrology talk at the Kabbalah Center?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds awesome." And everybody else said, "Wait, what are you talking about? We don't believe that stuff. Why would we do that?" And we went to it. And then when we got back, everyone started asking us, "Hey, how did it go? Like, oh, what happened?" And they were so interested. And we thought, wait, you didn't want to come with us. Why do you want to know about all this? And then we realized, maybe we have something here. People want to hear about these things without doing them. So, that was the genesis.
Yeah. And as far as sort of switching sides from believer to not so strong believer, I believed in a lot of stuff, Shane. I was a Christian too, but I had a real New Age bent at one point where I was into feng shui, and I got all sorts of alternative medical treatments and thought maybe I had latent psychic powers. I don't know how my Christianity didn't inoculate me against that, but it happened. But I started to doubt my religious beliefs in my
Mm-hmm.
mid-20s, and then I had this really crystallizing experience where I was living in a guest house that was kind of run down, and I was renting it out, and I actually started to think that I was being haunted in this house. And I had like physical symptoms where I felt like this pressure on my chest, and I'd hear weird sounds, like weird whooshing sounds. Yeah, I just came to believe like, okay, there's a demon in this house. I can feel this presence. I went online to try to find an explanation for this, and I ended up on a forum for ghost hunters who consider themselves skeptics. And so I posted in there kind of basically being like, okay, wise guys, why don't you explain what's happening to me? And someone very delicately was like, well, do you know about carbon monoxide poisoning? And, of course I had heard of that, but I didn't realize that if you have a small CO leak, it can cause the symptoms of hauntings. Yeah, it can give you things like chest pain and auditory hallucinations and so on. And it turned out that's exactly what was happening. And that really like made me reframe all of my suspicions about how this world works.
It's interesting you should mention that, because I was reading about, I can't remember it now at the time, you just made me think of it there, where an engineer was, I think he was cleaning his saber for fencing, and what he noticed was it was vibrating, but while he was in the room, before he found out what the source was, he kept seeing apparitions in the corner of his eye, human shapes, that kind of thing. And it turns out that it was the infrasound,
low frequency,
low frequency emissions, and that is actually what created it. And then he went and investigated it. So that could be anything from a shaft moving as well. So that's parallel to that. That's interesting, actually, that you should bring it up. But I had never heard before that low level carbon monoxide poisoning could actually cause these.
It's one of the theories. Yeah, it's one of the theories about like why haunted houses are often old houses, you know. I mean, certainly there's also something going on there with the culture that we have this idea that that's what a haunted house looks like. But that might be the origin of that mystery.
Ah, very interesting. And tell me, guys, something a little bit about you personally. What was it? This is an easy one now. So what is it that you like to do in your free time when you're not working and when you're not doing the show? What's your kind of hobbies?
Boy, I got a lot. Well, we both like to read. We're both big readers, so I try to prioritize that and make as much time as I can. Yes. I've got a family and a wife and a son, so spend as much time with them, as possible. We watch a lot of movies and shows together and try to go around town and do various active things. That's what comes to mind. I'm a poll worker on the side. I do that, like for elections.
Yeah, I read a ton too. I love live comedy, so I see a lot of live comedy shows. Very into birds. Just got into birds recently. Can't name any birds for you except like pigeon.
It's a burgeoning ornithologist here.
Right. But yeah, I'm getting into amateur birding. I love chess. And I love my doggy.
Yay! Doggies, always good. Okay. And so the show itself, how has it actually impacted your private lives now, or even your work lives? You know, the whole thing about A, being recognized, or B, being impacts that previous investigations have had to this day, kind of thing, or even a social media. Do you get hounded occasionally on social media by trolls, that kind of thing, like that package?
It's funny because we really did set ourselves up with a podcast where being popular is not a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to show up in these places and not be recognized. We do use our real names and identities, and we just don't advertise, hey, we're here to investigate you and report on a podcast. We just ask the questions that we naturally have. So we've had someone look us up before, but that didn't really stymie the investigation. We were surprised Scientology took as long as they did to look us up. I think maybe we benefit from the fact that most of our listenership are not the kind of people we'd be showing up on their services or meetings or groups. So typically they don't know, but that could potentially be a problem.
Yeah. And then as far as social media, of course we have we have trolls. We definitely have a few obsessive fans from Melissa Scott's church.
Oh, yeah. They seem to have let up now that we've moved on to other topics. But yeah, they're kind of the
Yeah.
worst.
They formed like a Facebook hate group about us. Well, not hate group in the official sense, but they did not like us. And yeah, I mean, we get like some nasty comments and whatnot, but hopefully that shows that we're doing a good job and we're making something that people have to think about.
It's certainly a part-time job just keeping up with the communications by
Yeah,
email,
I can imagine.
Facebook, and Twitter for Carrie. And yeah, I would say 95% of all the communication is just wonderful and glowing and supportive, and people sending ideas for things they want us to investigate. By the way, we do have enough ideas. We are not struggling for ideas. I can tell you that. But yeah, I'd say, there's only maybe even 5% out there who are just jerks.
Well, see, isn't that always the thing? You've got this absolutely wonderful and miraculous, dare I say, ability to communicate globally for the time it takes for the electrons to move from A to B. But the problem that poses is that every idiot out there gets a platform too. Right. I guess that's all. We're all equal and we all have a right to speak. But the problem is those who shout the loudest, unfortunately, are heard first.
Right.
I'm reminded of Christopher Hitchens' line: "Everybody has a book in them, but for most people, it should stay there."
Exactly. Yeah. I'd say it's a net positive. So
exactly. Well, we're only still learning. We're in our infancy in trying to deal with this new social media thing. This is only exploding, and we will get there.
Yeah, to be a little off topic, that makes me want to plug my friend John Ronson's book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed, which is all about the behavior of people online and even the behavior of good people and how that can even go awry when we're hiding behind a keyboard. So highly recommend that.
That was a very interesting book. I follow pretty much all his audiobooks.
Oh, good.
He's an excellent journalist. Now, let's get on to the podcast itself. All right. So let's start right back at the basics, right back at the beginning.
Okay. Hello. Welcome to Oh No RossCarrie.
So how is it actually that you guys decide to investigate something? So we'll start with your very first episode. Did you know the sun is green? The Kabbalah episode that was aired back in 2011. Yes, that's how long you've been rolling strong. How do you start these investigations, and how has the process changed since then? What are the factors that are to be considered now?
Yeah, originally it was just kind of what fell on our plate. So Carrie had invited me to that Kabbalah lecture. And so when we decided a few months later to start the podcast, we went back there and attended another lecture and then talked about the both of them. And that just sparked the format of the show. And then we had immediately a list that we could both write of, we should look into this. We want to do that. And so that launched us into things like ear candling. And early on, we constrained the show topic-wise to things that would be relevant to scientific topics. So maybe not so much political rallies or furry conventions. Once somebody invited me to that. That's always my example of something where I got all excited. Oh, cool, we could go to a furry convention, and then realized they're not making any extraordinary claims about how the world works. That list of ours has grown and expanded. But I would say usually the reason we'll do something is because it sort of falls in our laps. Someone comes to visit in the Los Angeles area that we've been wanting to see, or there's a conference coming up and, cool, we've been wanting to do that. So we kind of just see what is happening at the right time and place for the both of us too. It's hard to coordinate our schedules. So that's a big factor as well.
Yeah, and we're always tracking a bunch of things. We have a shared Google Calendar where a little notice will pop up and be like, are you going to that energy healing thing in August? And we'll be like, gosh, I don't even remember what this is, and pull that up and go to the link. And so we're constantly throughout the year just seeing all these different places we'd like to investigate. Do they have anything coming up? And if they do, then it's kismet.
Well, along the lines and over the years, you have done some pretty ballsy things. That just to name a few: getting baptized into the Mormon Church, implanting yourselves into the Raelian UFO group, walking marches with anti-vaccines group, and the Church of Scientology implanting for so long. and which is definitely, I think, one of those that you're haunted by as such by your listeners and the organization itself.
It doesn't seem like there's any end to the interest in Scientology.
Yeah. Well, it's so openly there, yet it is so secretive. That's what's so interesting. They're right down your street. They openly publicize their recruitment. Yet, well, now they're so much known. But as such. But what made you decide to go so deep, or that to push the boundary a little bit more and more and more? Or did it sometimes get to a point where you're kind of like, oh shit, now I'm in now. I'll just keep going.
Sorry, my cuckoo clock is distracting me.
We have to stop our recording once every hour, because Carrie's cuckoo clock sings for quite a long time.
Okay, there we go.
It knows what time it is.
Yeah, that's right.
That's literally true. Yeah, okay, so deciding to go deep. I mean, one of our early investigations was the Mormons, and even then we went to like one meeting, and then I remember turning to Ross in his truck and being like, I think we should go all the way. I think we should try to become members. So even from the beginning, I think we were pretty willing to go all the way, as long as we could be 99% honest, and we were still welcome there.
Right. We don't pre-plan it that much, because we just want to go with it organically. So we never, at the inception of our Mormon investigation, said, hey, we're going to get baptized. It happened despite all of the qualifications we were giving the Mormons about our continuing questions and concerns about the doctrine. And so that's definitely part of the storytelling there. With Scientology, I will admit, I think I was being a little sneaky in that we were doing a personality test investigation. And I said to Carrie, hey, why don't we go in for a Scientology personality test just to have as a fun add-on? Because we'd been very reluctant to get into Scientology. They have a reputation, and we were just a little concerned about the implications of starting that investigation. So we did the personality test, and then they offered us courses, and I signed up right away. And Carrie said, oh, all right, I'll sign up too. I was resisting. And we thought they would figure us out right away, and that didn't happen. So thus was born our Scientology investigation.
Oh, excellent. And did you, along with any of these, did you at any stage feel that maybe your life was on the line, or at least threatened, or even stories of close calls that you were about to be made that could have been harrowing in that moment? And what is it that made you continue then as well? Did you say like, okay, no, I want to finish this, or were you ever close to saying like, oh no, this is getting too deep now?
Well, our most recent investigation includes a story where I am on the drug ayahuasca, and I have a moment where I'm convinced that I am dying in that moment, and I utterly freak out and panic. And at that point, there's not much I can do. I'm in it. So, and that's the last day of the ceremonies. So I just have to struggle for survival, and then realize later that I was probably okay. But still, it was very, very frightening. So I'd say that's the most afraid I've ever been for my life.
Yeah. I don't think the show has ever made me afraid for my life, but the time that I was the most afraid was when we did the Tony Alamo Christian Ministries investigation.
Yeah.
And this is a true cult that was run by a man who was in prison for child rape. They had a very checkered past, to say the least. They had beaten former members, beaten children. So we knew what these people were capable of, and here we were getting in their white unmarked van and heading an hour out of the city to their church.
Watching our cell phone coverage dissolve and disappear.
Yeah. So we were careful during that investigation. We did have a friend of ours who's an ex-cop kind of on our trail.
We knew where we were.
Yeah. We did our best to protect ourselves. We certainly respect our own lives. But at the same time, I think my philosophy is basically like, well, you do as much as you can to protect yourself. And if in the 1% chance that you die, well, you died doing something amazing.
They died doing what they loved.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, oh my gosh, recently there was this horrible story about this woman who was, I'm not laughing at her death, I'm laughing at the way people reacted to it. But there was a horrible story of this woman who died by being mauled by a lion. And she apparently loved lions, so I kept seeing people saying she died doing what she loved. And I was like, being mauled by a lion? Anyway. That's not what she loved.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway.
Well, that reminds me of all these memes, you know what I mean? Like, organic and natural is always good for you. Well, a lion attack is pretty natural too, you know?
Exactly.
So I think one thing that we bring to our podcast is that we don't have some of the same inhibitions that other people do.
Yeah.
Certainly that some of our listeners do. And so I think one thing both Carrie and I have are an ability to be highly absorbent of people's ideas and beliefs. And it's just hard to bore us. Mm. And then also it's hard to embarrass us. So you can put us in a situation that would make most people wither under the discomfort of it, the social discomfort. Yeah. And we'll just be grinning because we think, oh, this is deliciously uncomfortable. And so I think for that reason, people enjoy living vicariously through our adventures. Someone asked us recently where we fall on the range from brave to crazy. And I think we're maybe both. A bit of both. It's hard to say, and it's hard to call oneself any of these things because you only know your own calibrations. But I would say that Carrie falls a little more on the brave end of the spectrum, and me a little more on the crazy end.
Well, it's a good mix because you need to be a bit crazy to be that brave, but you also need to be brave to stay that crazy. You know what I mean? And do what you do. You know. Yeah, that's actually one thing that I was going to get back to, or two things. One, you had mentioned that you're 99% truthful in the sense that you don't tell direct lies as such. It's more so at misdirection by omission kind of thing. So that's quite an honest aspect of ways of doing it. But also what I found, and the squeamishness factor, is that you guys are so incredibly honest about bodily functions. That is one thing that I'm always laughing at. It's kind of like, yeah, and I seriously had the shits. And it's just like, you don't hear that in every podcast, you know? But that's the whole great thing. You try to envelop the listener into the whole experience. And if that was part of the experience, then experience it with you, you know? It's fantastic. It's a great way of describing absolutely everything in detail. And can I just say, I have to commend you on the amount of detail you bring with you. Yeah, I know you take notes where possible. I know, but it's just, you must have incredible memories apart from taking notes wherever you can.
Well, thanks. And it helps that there's two of us, so we can bounce things off of each other. And Carrie can say, oh, no, actually, that was the other day that he did that. And I go, oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. So there's some reinforcement there. But yeah, we do try very hard to log as much as we can and relay it. And I think it's our own personal interest. The level of detail is at our level of interest, and everybody's different. So some people will say, enough already. Can you stop giving us all of this background on this thing and just get to the fun part? Yeah. But we're interested in everything that comes with it, and you know how these situations are led up to. So I'm glad to hear you enjoy that. I think most people do.
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely have to take a ton of notes, or I would forget. Like, sometimes I'll come back to my notes and I'll be like, what does this mean? He did what? And then, Ross and I'll have to convene and, pull apart what that meant, what that little note meant.
Yeah, and we'll edit out a lot of that, but sometimes it's telling just the recollection itself. That all of it is part of the story. So our forgetfulness or remembering or conferring with each other, that's part of the investigation as well, and part of the story. So we'll sometimes leave that in the show.
But yeah, if you're ever picturing us on one of these investigations, picture us with notebooks scribbling away the entire time.
Most likely what's happening.
Brilliant. From these investigations, some more hairy, some less. Is there any investigations that still haunt you to this day now? And are you still being communicated with, either in person or anything like that? And is there maybe people along the way that you've met still pop up in your lives?
Well, as far as the negative part of it, the sort of haunting us part, Scientology still isn't fans of ours.
Yeah, I would say they don't go out of their way to make our lives uncomfortable, though. So
no, not at all.
It's much better than I thought it would be. I think we picked a right time to do Scientology.
Right, but we're in their rogues gallery, so we're not allowed into any of their orgs.
That's right. We love that they train people to recognize us.
People sit down and memorize my face.
Yeah, I love that.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
That's quite an honor in a really screwed up way.
Yeah, it totally is.
So
It's
you
a
left
marked
an impact on
distinction.
them too.
It's funny because in life, I tend to make friends with virtually everyone I meet. I like everybody, and it's hard for me to not be liked, to be disliked by someone, and that kind of burns a hole in my psyche if I know there's someone out there who dislikes me. But I had to get to a point where I realized, okay, I'm not welcome at the Church of Scientology, and on some level that's kind of a bummer, but on another level, hey, if I'm not welcome anywhere, that's a good place to not be welcome.
Right.
In terms of haunting, about every night I have an intense itching on my foot from our firewalking investigation.
Yeah.
I overdid it like an idiot, and so that one still haunts me.
And you got like a condition from it.
Yeah, it's eczema. It's so yeah, just
no.
inflamed this eczema on my right foot, and it won't go away, and it's awful and itchy and flaky, and yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. And as far as people kind of staying our friends, I'd say the closest thing is the Mormons and the Aetherius Society. So the Mormons were very kind to us when we revealed to them that we had a podcast. They said, okay, you say that a podcast brought you here, but we think God brought you here, and you're always welcome here. And we were very touched by that. We both went back to the Mormon church a few times after that, and Ross continued to play circle ball with the guys and sometimes help people move, stuff like that.
Made some long friendships there.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
I'm still friends with Elder, what do we call him? Johnson. Elder Johnson on Facebook.
I was going to say that our investigations also live on in that people listen to our back episodes. I think one nice thing is that I think our episodes stay fairly fresh because we do it topic by topic. And so people will go back and listen to our back catalog, and they'll send us very fresh reactions to the Mormon episodes, which we did 7 years ago, and say, oh my goodness, I just got out of Mormonism. I was a missionary 4 years ago, and now I realize I'm gay. And, so we'll get these reactions. And so it constantly kind of brings our heads back into those places as we hear from people, which is wonderful.
The other thing that haunts us is that one time I offhandedly made a snarky comment about B.F. Skinner.
Oh.
And I don't even know that much about B.F. Skinner. I had heard what is apparently just a rumor, an unsubstantiated rumor about him. And it was totally tertiary to the episode. It's just an offhanded comment. But oh man, we'll get an email once every few months being like, I can't believe you said this mean thing about this dead behaviorist.
This being a podcaster, if you say anything slightly wrong, everyone lets you know about it because they don't know that everyone else has already let you know about it. And,
yes, you're the only one from a million people.
Right. And so it's totally understandable from their end because how do they know? But that means that if we say anything incorrect, we're going to hear about it from many, many, many people who know much more about the topic than we do, which is a bit nerve-wracking. It's a bit walking on eggshells, and we try to do some quick fact correction. But just with the volume of stuff we put out, we can't be as assiduous as we would like in paying attention to those details. So what are you going to do?
Well, hindsight is always 20/20. So
yeah. You learn.
Exactly. And
hindsight is 20/20 unless you're talking about alien abductions. Then hindsight is terrible.
We talked about now various groups that you've covered, that you've hung out with, made some long-term friendships with, or people in some groups. Is there any themes or any groups that right now you do not want to approach for, be it personal reasons, political reasons, whatever it may be? Is there anything that you're absolutely the hot potato you will not touch, be it now or ever?
I mean, I think I'm less inclined to have any of those taboos, though I did, after this latest investigation, promise my wife that I wouldn't do any more hard drugs because she was really not cool with that. So there we go. I have to abide by that.
I have two, I think. Oh, wait, no, maybe three. I don't want to do vaginal steaming.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I volunteered
But Gwyneth Paltrow told you so. It's so good. Put rocks in your vagina. And what
I
else?
said I
Some
would
dumb
do
shit,
the anal
honeycomb,
steam, but
or
that's
live
different.
hornet's nest, or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, Ross tried to counter that he'd do anal steaming, and I was like, yeah, I'll do anal steaming too. That is different.
Maybe we'll do anal.
But yeah, my two bigger ones are I don't particularly want to wade into the waters of Islam because especially in the States nowadays, Muslims are dealing with so much bigotry. And, I know that we would do our best to respect all the believers and not paint anything as negative that isn't negative, but it's such murky water right now. And I don't want to even risk contributing to that bigotry. The other thing is organized atheism, which I was involved in a few years ago and even kind of worked in. I worked in the organized skeptic movement. And I had a bad experience. And so I just still carry emotional baggage with that. And I think that if I went back there, it would be really hard for me to be impartial. And
as for Islam as well, yeah, it's a hot topic at the moment, and it's you treat it like any other investigation, but people on either side of the debate wouldn't be inclined to see it as a neutral porting. So I can totally see your point there. And
maybe things will be different in 30 years when we're still doing this podcast in our 60s.
Hopefully so. Then that means you can accompany me in my retirement.
Exactly.
Then we'll try all of the anti-aging treatments, the cancer remedies, the balding treatments, all of that stuff.
Oh yeah, by then it'll be Big Pharma will have it by then. And is there anything that you would advise your listeners against, actually, apart from, I don't know, generally cults and that kind of thing, or depending on how you see it, but everything can be a cult in that sense. But is there anything in particular that you would really advise people to stay away against because it can be harmful emotionally, socially, or even physically? Is there like ones that pop into your mind now?
I mean, my main admonishment would be for people just to know themselves well. For example, if you get anywhere within the valence of a Scientologist or an org, they're going to pull a lot of really strong tactics to try to get you in there. And if you have a hard time telling people no and being assertive, then maybe it's not the place for you to be. And that's just an issue of knowing yourself. But I would have a hard time kind of telling people, no, don't do this, unless I knew there was very clear and present danger involved.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, even as you were asking your question, I kind of watched you be me for a second. You're like, is there anything you would lead people away from, like a cult? Oh, but what really is a cult? And
yes,
that's
I know,
exactly,
because you can
that's exactly our experience all the time.
Exactly. I can fully understand that. It's on the one hand, when I was recently at a wedding, and I looked at other cult documentaries, and here they are in certain clothing and in garbs and really ritualized things, and there's the lemming standing there chanting and answering at certain times, and I was like, what is different to that than what we're doing right now, standing here? It is exactly in its format, it's exactly the same, but one is just more accepted than the other kind of thing, or it's just more spread. And yeah, that is that skeptical thing. Yeah, where does one thing end and another thing start?
Totally.
Yeah.
But the things that I would be hesitant to recommend to people, ear candling, is definitely, the FDA basically tells you don't do it because it's
is that not the one that's supposed to kind of pull the wax out, that kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah.
But you can get them anywhere. I thought that was fairly okay, no?
Well, I mean, I guess they're safe enough that you can sell them, but
I think most of the time you'll be fine. But there is a chance of dripping wax from the candle, not from your ear, into your ear.
Right. So what happens is that supposedly they suck wax out of your ear, but what really is happening is that it's lined with this very thin wax that you can't see when you haven't lit it. But once you do light it, that wax just curls up and falls into the base of it, and it looks like it came out of your ear. But the danger, as Ross said, is that can just go right in your ear.
So that's next level ear wax, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, you can light it outside of an ear and you'll still get all the same wax. I would say one of the areas where we would actively tell people, try to guide behaviors. For example, in our anti-vaccine episode, we said, vaccinate your kids. Mm-hmm. This is stupid. It's harmful. This is a bad idea that it's caught sway for some awful reason because people have forgotten why we have these vaccines. So, we'll make stronger positions on things like that where people's lives are in danger. Don't take your babies to the chiropractor to have their necks realigned or anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous stuff. Don't do that.
What I do always encourage people, though, is you should probably check out anything that's important to someone you love. If your wife is Catholic, go to Catholic church with her. Like, don't see these things as sort of lines you can't cross because you don't believe. I think, it really promotes empathy and understanding to join for these things as often as you can, especially if it's important to someone.
And, if someone was going to go to a Teresa Caputo presentation, she's the Long Island medium. We did an investigation of her. We would say, oh, yeah, go ahead, have a good time, enjoy what she does, the cold reading. It's a performance. But if it was someone who had recently lost a loved one, especially to suicide, knowing how Teresa Caputo will try to reinterpret those suicides, I would want to give heavy warnings like, hey, don't let her alter your memories. You might not be in the right place for her to do her shtick on you. Yeah. Again, that's another know yourself kind of thing.
Yeah, and don't take anything at face value.
That's always a good thing, and B, as you mentioned as well, like it's extremely vital that people understand the other side as well, because I'm part on Facebook, part of Pro Science Parents Ireland page, in which we point out, quack pages on Facebook or whatever it is, pointing each other brand new research or whatever it may be, or if someone has an issue, where can they be directed to get the best information. And what's happening is now there's an onslaught of anti-HPV, anti-vaccination movement, especially in Ireland, and it's always exactly the same links being quoted continuously. Sherry Tenpenny, Suzanne Humphreys, and so on and so forth. And what's amazing is that, as a part of my research into the anti-vax movement, is that I spend a hell of a lot of time reading these blogs and all that kind of stuff, because I need to understand where this is coming from. Because you can, unlike the anti-vax movement, who just go, so many dead from a vaccine. Post it, I don't care, I'm not poisoning my kids. Whereas you send them a nice clean link, but the problem is medical papers are so incredibly boring to read for someone who's not interested in it. And this is the problem. You need to slog through it. But yeah, just to reiterate a point that you made, is like, you understand the other side, attend to things, have a look at them, get a feel for them, then you can form an opinion on them,
Yeah, I remember a quote by Carl Sagan. He says, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology."
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I think about that. Just last night, I was interacting with a cousin of mine who believes in the flat earth, and she's anti-vaccine, anti-GMO.
You mentioned her before, yeah.
Anti-chemtrail, yeah. And so I just realized then, like, she just doesn't know how any of this actually works. And so she can fall prey to these conspiracies and easy explanations from the other side. And so a lot of knowledge is, I think, required to be a consumer of information.
Sorry if I'm getting off topic, but I dated a guy one time who said that he hated science. He would always say that. He hated science. He hated scientists. It was what was wrong with society.
Sounds like a good date for you.
Oh, my God. You met him, actually. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. He was a very sweet man otherwise. But I remember one time him going on an anti-science tirade while brushing his teeth. And I said, well, if you didn't have science, you could not brush your teeth. You would just be sitting there waiting for your teeth to decay. You'd probably be dead by now. You're 37. Your teeth would have rotted out of your head and, infected your gums and gone straight to your heart, and you'd be dead. That's how most people died. And then he started telling me why toothpaste isn't science.
This is just another opportunity for me to hawk the book Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker. I've been talking everyone's ear off about it, but Steven Pinker does such a good job of just collecting all of the progress that we've made as a society since the Enlightenment and since the values of science and reason and humanism in making the world a better place to live. So many people are nostalgic for this imagined past in which everything was great or better. But no, it was always worse. It's never perfect now. This isn't a Panglossian sort of best of all possible worlds view. It's just saying, yeah, things are bad now, but if we look back farther, they were worse then. And we look back farther still, they were worse then. So violence is going down, life expectancy is going up on so many measures, all of these things. So I recommend that highly for everybody. Enlightenment Now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for
Anyway,
the
what was the
recommendation.
question?
Yeah, sorry.
See, this is what happens when I don't take notes. I have no idea what the hell we're talking about. But what I was thinking of, though, imagine they sprayed the cure for vaccine injury in chemtrails. Their minds would explode.
Oh, maybe we should just tell people that's what's happening. Maybe we should just pit every conspiracy theory against each other until they cancel out.
Right.
That's a good idea.
For me, I always just wonder, okay, well, if they're seeding these chemtrails, what air are they breathing, the people who are orchestrating all this? They're breathing the same air. Why would they poison?
It's so stupid. Oh, there's a great meme out there with chemtrails over the White House, and it says the government trying to control the government. Like, it's just like, oh man,
it's the cabal, man. It's the shadow government.
I know, Illuminati confirmed, but it's if. So I want to round up the portion where we discuss the podcast as such with what drives you to do this. What pushes you on to keep doing it even after such a long time and so many wonderful and interesting investigations. What is it that still pushes you?
Well, I think what I've done is I found this clever excuse to do all these things that I want to do, because I really do enjoy hearing about beliefs from the believers themselves, attending these things, just because I want to know, how does this all break down? How does the process work? And so having this podcast gives me an excuse to go hang out with my buddy Carrie and do these things. Mm-hmm. And otherwise I wouldn't. So haha, life hack.
Yeah, we should put this on lifehack.com. Start a podcast with your friend where you
want to do something stupid that your spouse frowns upon, make a podcast and have a business model.
Oh, she doesn't frown upon the whole podcast.
Yeah, I know, but she frowns upon me going out.
It's what you do for it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Actually, I was just at Ross's apartment the other night, and we were packing up for an investigation that's coming up and saying, okay, we got to bring our dowsing rods, we got to bring our pendulum. And Cara was just sitting there reading a book and shaking her head to herself.
But she gave us suggestions too. She said, you might want to get one of these temperature meters. And I said, oh yeah, I'll add that to the shopping cart. Good idea.
And then you see her eyes gloss over with, what am I doing?
Yeah, why did I help this?
This is not a normal conversation.
But yeah, what drives us? So for me, I think adventure and curiosity are probably my most motivating features. I'm intensely curious, especially about human behavior and why people believe the things they believe. I'm super adventurous, I think. And you know, some people, they feel like, oh, they're really alive when they went zip lining or when they went skydiving or whatever. That's
adrenaline hit.
Right. That's what gives a lot of people that feeling of like, oh, this is one of the few moments in life I'll always remember. And for me, that this is really living feeling is like sitting with 11 cult members and chanting and, you know, doing some weird breathing exercise. To me, that's like, oh my gosh, I'm at like the fringes of human experience. I'm at the extreme end of belief, and I'm in the room with these people. Wow, this is really living.
I got a taste of this the other day. I was walking home from work, and Carrie and I were texting because we were supposed to record. This was just yesterday. We were supposed to record the podcast.
Was that yesterday?
No, it was the day before yesterday. And so I'm thinking, there we go. That's the two of us correcting our memories here. But we had also just heard from a listener about a faith healing event happening that night in Los Angeles. And I was so torn because I knew we needed to get the episode recorded. We needed to get it processed. And yet I really wanted to go do this other thing. And I thought, oh, good. I had this moment of realization. I'm not just doing this because I have to. I really want to be there. And it's killing me that I can't be there. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of what drives us. And just to add kind of to an earlier conversation, we were talking about how we don't mention to people that we're doing a podcast and how, you know, there's this omission going on. At the same time, I really do feel that we're open to these ideas and we want to hear them out, and that we would be convinced if there were good reasons to believe something. And so it's this weird tightrope balance that we walk between, you know, knowing that we're working on a show and that we're going to report to people on it, but also being in there for ourselves in our own personal experience and to learn what we can and maybe be influenced by it, you know, one way or the other. So, you know, that's just always something to be considering.
You make a very, very good point there, Ross. It's show me the evidence and I am there. It's as simple as that. If something works, I will take it. If something, whatever it may be, I am there. And it's not, people have this negative connotation with skepticism. All it is just having a critical eye. It's you make a claim. Fair enough, that's okay. You're entitled to make that claim, but show me that it works and show me the proof, and I'm in it. But until you show it to me, I'm just going to sit back and let you do your thing to see if it convinces me. It's the same goes for religion or whatever it is. One sign of God, and I'm there, 100%. But until then, I'm sitting down. And that's an important thing to do as well. But it's lovely to see that both of you are so open to these things, not only just as an investigation, but as you said, to be, to experience people, to experience what they believe and see and hear and taste and smell. It's amazing, but at least you're open to it because you can be convinced if the evidence is convincing. That's amazing,
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I don't, we're assuming this about ourselves, right? Like, I think that's true. I think that if I were given the evidence, I would believe it. That's certainly what I want in myself. But it is a little bit of fortune telling too, like, because maybe not, maybe we're all walking around with our own biases. And right. I've certainly met people who consider themselves skeptical thinkers and do dismiss stuff out of hand. So, we
try to unpack all those things on the show too.
Yeah.
And lay bare our biases where we have them and,
right.
And talk about those issues of how we've closed ourselves off to certain concepts.
Right. But that's certainly our goal, is to be consistently open-minded to any evidence.
Exactly, and that's a wonderful thing, and that's how people should be thinking, and at least to engage these thoughts, but at least be open about your biases as well. We're only human. We all have them. We all have some of us have them automated without even realizing them, and at least as long as you can acknowledge them, then it at least gives you the understanding of how you see the evidence, at least. But that's an important thing. Engage it.
Yeah, especially in the last few years here in the States, I think a lot of people who had the good privilege to be born white have been realizing how we, things that I thought I was being completely objective about, I can't be objective about because I'm sitting on this mountain of privilege. So those are things you always have to examine too.
Yes, absolutely. And to move on to now the actual the technical side of things of the podcast setup itself, because we talked a little bit about you guys yourselves, then we talked about your podcast and some of the things you've experienced and your thoughts on the podcast itself. But now let's discuss, because I find this as a new up and coming what am I talking about? Starting podcaster. Thanks, Mom, for listening. So let's talk about the actual construct of what goes into a podcast, because I find maybe the new media listeners will be very interested in how this actually works. So from conception to realization and publishing, on average, so like how long can it take to finish an investigation? Bearing in mind, of course, that some of these can take a day and some of these can take a month. But if you had to average it out, what's the kind of level of work that you need to put into?
Yeah, that's notoriously difficult to track, because it bleeds into so many little areas of our life, and it's not so discreet to pull out. But even when we were still monthly, I know we compared notes and we tried to look at that, and we estimated we were doing about 60 hours of work a month to put out a podcast. I would say now it's crept upward, maybe 20 hours a week or so on average that we put into.
That's
a lot
into the show.
Yeah, and now I sometimes will write articles that are tangential to what we're doing. And so for me, it's like, where does the podcast stop? And this piece I'm writing for this outlet, where does that begin? Because the topic is the same. And maybe I use some of the information that I got writing the article in the show and vice versa. So, it's really hard to say. But if you hear us go to one of these one-offs where it's like, we went and got fire cupping, and it took 2 hours to do the whole thing, and then we came back and recorded it. That's going to be a lot shorter. That's probably going to be 20 hours-ish of work.
Yeah.
But, something like Scientology, Jesus,
That's something else.
About,
That's
just one
days.
episode was about a Dianetics course, and we were there at the church for 22 hours on a single weekend.
Right. And that's just actually doing the thing, not talking about the thing, not doing research on the thing.
Recording and editing. So a little bit about our, soup to nuts process here. We are sitting in Carrie's place where we record most of our episodes, and we've got two Heil PR40 mics. They've got XLR connections, and we recommend people spend good money on good XLR cables if you want high quality audio. Worth its weight in gold right there. We've upgraded equipment over the years, by the way. We started with USB mics. We had a lot of problems keeping audio in sync. Anyway, so those mics connect into a Zoom H6n recorder, which has a built-in microphone and accepts up to 4 inputs. So that's kind of our basic equipment there. That records audio files onto an SD card. We then pull that out, put it in a computer. We take those files and we kind of do a noise removal process to clean it up as much as possible, and then sort of chop off the peaks and normalize it so that it fills up the space. We edit inside of Audition, and so we are an audition-based, cloud-based workflow. So then I can set up the audio. We can send it to Victor Figueroa, who does our editing. He does now the main pass, and God love him for it. But then Carrie can jump in. Our administrative manager, Ian, can jump in. So really it's the four of us involved in the podcast. We are the total team. And so then I'll do a final pass on the audio, bring in all of the little Max Fun bits and the ancillary things that we record and, audio at the end, and then do a master mix of that, do some more final balancing, put on all of the metadata, upload it onto Libsyn. That's where we host our audio, and then post it on, usually Ian gets to handle all this, post it on our website, the Maximum Fun website, on Facebook, and then Carrie posts on Twitter, and then it's out for the world to listen to.
Boom. That's how you roll. That's very interesting. That's all very good to hear. Sometimes it's the minutia that can be fascinating as well. Does all of this now? Does this spill over, or like all this work that you put in on the actual attending and whatnot? How does that actually spill into your I'll say it in inverted commas, your normal lives then? Why would normal be in inverted commas? I actually don't understand why you said that.
Oh no, I get it.
That's right. I guess normal
we
is
don't have normal lives.
Yeah, I guess only if we suspect that it might not actually be normal.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I work a regular day job. I work at Disney, and it seems now like twice a week someone will come up to me and say, "Hey, my cousin just asked me if I work with Ross Blocher. You do a podcast?" And so that keeps creeping in, or people at work will listen, or people in other parts of my life, and so that's always weird being, I guess, internet famous. But yeah, it's definitely become part of my life and who I am and my identity.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the podcast gave me a career, really. I mean, from doing this, I basically realized, oh shit, I accidentally became a journalist. And then I went and got my master's at USC, and that's most of the work I've been doing since has been journalism. So, I mean, it's clearly deeply defined my professional life. My personal life, like Ross, sometimes I'll be walking my dog and someone will recognize me, or the other night at a bar, someone recognized me. It seems like every time one of us goes to a wedding, someone comes up to us and is like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, that happened twice to me at a wedding.
I don't know what it is. Yeah. Weddings. Weddings bring out podcast listeners.
Well, then we'll get emails from people later saying, "I was on the plane next to you guys and I watched you the entire time."
Right.
We'll tell you now. If you see us, let us know. I remember someone once wrote me and said, "Hey, I saw you at a car dealership and I was too embarrassed to come talk to you." And I thought, please come talk to me, because otherwise I'll be picking my nose or something.
Right, exactly. You feel so watched.
That'll be the time. Yeah.
It's weird because obviously we're not famous, but we're internet famous, and it's kind of fun. But you were talking earlier about the hi mom thing. Well, that's where we started out, where our buddies listened, and Carrie remembers in particular being so excited when we got to the point where like more people listened to our show than we actually knew
friends.
people.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
That point was when we were getting 50 downloads a day. I remember that. I remember being like, 50 a day? Well, wait, hang on. I told less than 50 people about this. That means strangers are downloading it.
It's word of mouth or something. Yeah,
Well,
so all of those milestones have been exciting for us.
Well, it's all a learning and growing and organic process at some stage, like you got to make your mistakes. You got to learn, you got to adapt, you got to change if need be. Because I mean, like on our YouTube, as I said, parallel, YouTube is for us parallel at the moment. That's why our videos would be quite inconsistent, because sometimes we recorded and sometimes we didn't. But that's fine. At least we have them archived now as such, and we might expand to that. But we've got about 15 subscribers on YouTube, and the funny thing is, every single one of them.
Oh, sure.
And it's just kind of like, yay, my sister subscribed. I just knew, when it went up by one.
The key for creating things, whether it be podcast or art or whatever it is, writing, whatever it is you're doing, is just to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Do it. And it'll be crap. Chuck Jones, the famous animator and creator of Looney Tunes, he has this great quote about, everyone has 100,000 bad drawings in them. Get them out as fast as possible.
Did he create Lumiere?
No.
Okay, because when I was a kid, I went and met the guy who created Lumiere at a paper show, and I said, I want to be an animator. And he said, then draw as many bad drawings as you can.
I bet that would probably be Nick Ranieri. He was the animator behind Lumiere. I know him. Yeah, so he probably got that. And that's a mantra within animation.
Sure.
Like, yep, you just have to keep doing it, and it's going to be bad, but do it and get through it.
Yeah, it's the same thing with acting, too. People say if you go on an audition and you get a no, you should be excited because you're going to get more no's than yeses, so you're just creeping your way toward that yes.
I was watching an interview recently with Roxane Gay, the author, and she was saying, people call me an overnight success because I have this one book that kind of blew up. But no, I was writing for 20 years under pseudonyms and on online forums and technical manuals and, weird romance books you'll never read. I don't know if that part is true, but, she was just saying I was writing all this stuff and no one was paying attention for 20 years. So don't call me an overnight success.
Sure. Hasn't Game of Thrones been out since, I don't know, in and around 1984?
Oh, the book?
Is it that long? Wow.
I could be absolutely wrong here, and I don't want to get crucified for it, but we're talking, this has been around a long, long time. But again, that just kind of attests to what you just say. Did a video interview with a tech reviewer, Kevin from Tech Showdown. Yo, shout out Kev. And he had given really, really great advice, and he basically said, just work with what you have. Don't go out buying $10,000 Red 2 cameras or whatever it may be. Just work with what you have now, what is within your budget, but create the content as if you're creating for 10 million people. And that was always really good advice. He goes, even if it's only your family looking at it the next day, it doesn't matter. Keep it to the best possible level that you can, and always make it as if it's for millions of people. That keeps you to a kind of a higher standard as well. It doesn't matter if it's 10 or 10 million. Keep it high, and I thought that was very, very helpful, actually.
I like that, unless I would say that thought paralyzes you. In that case, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah, then make it for your mom.
Here, I'll save us all a bunch of emails. The first Game of Thrones was begun in 1991 and published in 1996. So
sorry,
still long time
12
ago.
years, but still.
Yeah, still a good 15 plus years.
I had to look that up. I did not know that.
Oh, thank you for that instant correction, actually, because that could have gone real bad.
See, these are the sort of things we'll stop the recording sometimes and say, no, we got to figure this out now, or we answer 80 emails later.
Especially if it's something aligned with geek culture.
Yes.
Oh, you got to tread real careful there. Real careful.
Well, it's hard for the geek banner, because people will call you on it.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a geek. So let me just say that now to the world.
All right, so we actually covered a good bit here, and we got a lovely, nicer insight into your world. So just a thing on the sponsors and what kind of listener base and downloads are you guys having right now at the moment? Because one thing can influence the other. Tell us about Maximum Fun, because I know that that is how you slipped into that gateway of realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I would say when we joined Maximum Fun, that tripled our listenership overnight. We were an overnight success. And that was through Carrie's involvement. She had known about Maximum Fun and had some friends softball team, was it?
Yeah, well, I had listened to Max Fun podcast for a while. There was a show on the network called Throwing Shade that since has moved to Earwolf, but I loved that podcast, and I think that's the first one I listened to and got interested in Max Fun content, and then started listening to all the other great shows. And I was already making this show with Ross at that time. So I started going to Max Fun Con, their summer convention, and to some of their events. And anyway, ended up becoming friends with some of the staff there. And Lindsay Pavlis, who is the donations manager, I believe, at Max Fun, she was the first who was really like, oh my gosh, I really love this show. I think it might be good for Max Fun. And so we submitted it. And then Jesse Thorne, who runs Max Fun, got into it and pulled us aside and said, it took us to a Mexican restaurant and said, yeah, we'd like to, offer you a spot on the network, which we were thrilled to take.
Yeah.
And now the model is that we're hugely listener supported. That's the vast majority of our income.
Of our support is generous listeners who send in, $5 a month, $10 a month and upward to support us.
And I would be remiss to not mention that we are in Max Fund Drive right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Our yearly fund drive.
All of these numbers are fresh in our head. You asked us at a good time because this is.
That's why I mentioned my maximum fun in the question already. I usually would let you talk about it, but I had that in mind for you guys to drop that.
We appreciate that. And so we recruit donors, and then that sustains us throughout the year, kind of those levels. And then we try to drum up some new support the following year.
And then you asked about sponsors. So our advertisements come through Max Fun. Max Fun arranges those for us. We can approve or decline them. And I would say we're at the point where we usually have at least one ad per show.
Yeah, usually. Yeah. And then people can also send personal messages to loved ones or whatever they want to say via these jumbotrons to Maximum.
Yep.
And then there's merchandise. We want to expand that too.
Yeah. And one cool thing that Max Fun does is that other networks will pick your ads for you and you have to run them, and that's it. Max Fun both lets us decline them if we're not into the product, and also says you never have to give testimonials unless you really actually like the product, which is really nice. If we want to just
that's really good to know. That's really, really good to know, because you occasionally talk about mattresses and I'm just there going, how comfortable are they?
That's fair.
Okay, that's actually good that you mention it. This is a little insight that people might know,
And we do emphasize they are firm mattresses. So
firm.
We just want to make sure that people who are not into firm mattresses,
just
realize that's the case.
And then Casper is not for you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Make sure you donate. By the way, this is not an end blurb. I'm plugging for you.
All right.
Just guys, this is great value for money. For that little donation, what you get in return is its weight in gold. Like absolutely, and 10 times over. It is really phenomenally good. I just wanted to just drop that in there for you.
Well, thank you. Goodness. I like where this has gone, and at the same time makes me very uncomfortable. But thank you. Thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Right, so we had discussed anyway, because I was going to ask you, is there a short pick-me-up that you can give newcomers in new media, whatever it may be it YouTube, podcasting, that kind of thing? I know we had said, do it, if you're going to do it big, or as if it's big, that kind of thing. But is there anything else in the background where you can give a little bit of advice to maybe push someone that might have ideas to go and do it?
Well, that's the key. Have an idea. This is the number one piece of advice I give people who talk about starting a podcast. A lot of the time, the motivation just starts with, I want to do a podcast. And from there, they think about, well, what would the podcast be about? Almost as an afterthought. All the shows that you love, with tiny exceptions, have great log lines. You can describe what the show does very easily. And the more specific you make that, the better your show will be. And it will limit your behavior. Now that we've drawn this line in the sand that we only investigate extraordinary claims, like Ross said, if someone says, well, a furry convention seems right up your alley, we have to say, oh, nope, line in the sand is extraordinary claim. Yeah. There's no extraordinary claim attached there. But that makes your show really focused, and it makes you make sure that you're offering something unique. So yeah, that's my top advice.
Yeah, and you just make sure if you're doing podcasting takes so much work. You know this, Shane.
Oh yeah.
It's and dedication. So just make sure you're in for the long haul and that you have the passion for that topic. So like Carrie says, make sure you're offering something new. And for me, I remember I was a podcast listener in the same predicament, if we can call it that, of anybody else who's thinking about starting one. I remember I used to listen to 25 or so podcasts, and I thought, oh boy, this market is already flooded. There's nothing new I can contribute. I don't want to just be another show where I, talk about science news or something like that. And so when we had this idea, and I realized we can offer this vicarious experience, we can be funny about it, and we can be nice about it. I thought, okay, we've got like 3 new things that make this something new. And so then I felt more confident going forward with it. And I knew we'd have the passion and certainly no end of topics. Though it's also okay to just set out and say, I want to start a show and it's just going to be this one thing and it's going to end at this time. Mm-hmm. That's okay too. Like there was a show I listened to where this guy just read the works and the speeches of Robert Ingersoll. And when he ran out of speeches, he stopped recording the podcast, but it's this great little nugget. So, that's possible as well. So those would be my bits of recommendation.
No, they're very good actually. That's something good to push into. I think it's an organic thing. It's a thing that you grow on. Our podcast as well. It was just my friend David and me. We just sat together and he was like, the way we talk a lot of shit, and I was like, yeah. Do you want to put it down on audio? I said, yeah. So we have the presentation or whatever. But what we wanted to do, and an idea was that we branch as well with this series of interviews, because we're called Random Urban Memories. I want to do random interviews, or seemingly random, in the sense that every interview will be a new or random or seemingly random topic that could be interesting to you. And we're going to be talking to, I don't know, whatever it may be, yoga instructors, police chiefs, that kind of thing. And and that organically grew as well. That was it. Sorry.
Oh, I just love that you said yoga instructors, police chiefs, that kind of thing. Like those two things. We all know how those are connected.
Or get them in the room together, even better. So yeah, that kind of thing. But it's an organic idea that just grew onto it, and I really like the advice that you have given there for the people. By the way, I just wanted to roll back just for a minute and shout out to Ian Kramer.
Ian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ian's the best. He's been with us since the very beginning. He gave our show its name.
Yep.
And he was our producer for a while. Now he's our administrative manager because he and his wife had a baby.
Yeah.
Super. Well, congrats to him. I guess I just wanted to give him a little shout out there.
Yeah. So it's a small team, and he's been part of it, like Carrie said, from the beginning.
Good stuff. So, give me a quick overview of what kind of podcasts you do listen to. Any recommendations for people out there in various genres or whatever it may be that people can go download and listen to, apart from your own, of course.
Oh boy, I love a lot of podcasts on the Maximum Fun Network. I'd say I have 2 clear favorites. Reading Glasses is a new show, and it's all about reading and book culture. Love that one. Also, Sawbones. It's kind of a fun corollary to our own show. I think it's the closest to our own on that network, in which a doctor and her husband look at historical practices when it comes to various ailments, different treatments. It's just a fun look through the history of medicine, and they make it very enjoyable and listenable. I also listen to, Waking Up with Sam Harris.
Yes.
Fan of that show. Lots of interesting conversations. He brings in a lot of good minds, and it's fun to hear people clash with him on things. Skeptoid, I think, is a great digestible show that looks at a lot of the things we do, these urban legends and popular myths and science topics, and it really condenses it down to just like 15 minutes of all the info you need to know on a topic. And I think it's really well and responsibly done. Big Picture Science is one of my favorites from SETI, used to be called Are We Alone? Yep. And that's a great just general science topic show. They cover so much ground, and every show has a theme, and they also have some fun with it, make a lot of bad puns. Those are some of the ones that leap out to me. I listen to many more. How about you, Carrie?
Okay, let's see. My favorites, Throwing Shade, which I mentioned.
Mm.
That's a podcast of, they say, news for ladies and gays, but it's really for everybody, of course, but they deal with like those issues in particular. It's very, very funny. There's a show called Why Won't You Date Me that I've been into a lot recently that's hosted by a comedian named Nicole Byer, and she'll bring on someone that she's hooked up with and then be like, but why didn't you date me? Because she's never had a boyfriend or girlfriend. And so they can be very awkward conversations, but also really lovely. Radio Lab is definitely up there for me.
Yeah.
Love Radio Lab.
For
Love
sure.
Reply All. Yeah. Reply All. Inside the Disney Vault, which is a show that reviews every single Disney animated movie, and is made by 3 comedians out of UCB. That's really fun. Okay,
I'm going to jump in here. Of course, got to recommend Hidden Mickeys.
Oh, thank you.
That is Carrie's other show for fans of Carrie Poppy. She co-hosts that with Natalie Palamides, and they look at all of the deep, dark, seedy underbelly of Disney culture and history. And I've learned things from it, and I'm a big Disney geek.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah, and then on Max Fun, man, I have so many favorites. Jesse Thorne, who runs Max Fun, he just said the other day that he feels like his network really produces stuff that is as good as like what you might find from NPR or some of these
really well funded
entities. And I thought, wow, that's really true. And we do run the gamut. There are people who just sit and chat, and those shows are really good too.
Yeah, it's a wide range.
Yeah, but
Judge John Hodgman.
Judge John Hodgman is so funny, so good. Love Jordan Jesse Go. Love Can I Pet Your Dog? You mentioned Sawbones. Which
Jesse
is
did
great.
one of those limited series, The Turnaround.
Oh, The Turnaround!
I think super good.
I think The Turnaround might be the best show that's ever been on Max Fun besides ours, of course.
That's fine. We don't have to be the best.
That's Jesse interviewing interviewers, because Jesse has been interviewing since I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, but he never went to journalism school. So he says that's his journalism school. He just waited to get famous. And then he was like, hey, Larry King, can you come on my show and tell me how to interview people? And so he interviews all these people who are famous interviewers. And it's good.
Downloading it as we speak.
Excellent. Hey, all right. We pitched that successfully. And I got to throw in a word for Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Love that show.
And I have 2 more. The Memory Palace.
Oh, yeah.
And Super Ego. And Super Ego is done now, but was so good. Oh, and S-Town.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
That's it.
There's
so many good podcasts.
Yeah. So we love podcasts. And if you love podcasts, listener, whoever's listening, that might be a good sign that maybe that's something you can contribute to.
The world is your oyster. Seek it out and then see what can happen. Well, guys, I think this brings us towards the end of a informative, salacious, insightful, wonderful journey of your minds, of your souls, of your work, and of your ideas. And
starting to remind me of the ayahuasca talks.
Bam!
Thank you, Shane. I think I'll really want to encourage our listeners to hear this, because I think we've opened up about a lot of things that we've just never really talked about before. So, great interviewing. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it, considering it's only my second. Thank you very much, guys. I want to give you the opportunity then. I know we've covered a lot in a back and forward kind of fashion, but if there's anything that you would like to plug right now, or mention where to go to donate, or where's the best places to find you, and just drop it on the folks.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's Max Fun Drive, and that continues until Friday the 13th. So, if you want to support our show, you can go to MaximumFun.org/donate. And right now we are we're like between 2,000 and 2,500 new and upgrading on-rack listeners.
As of this recording.
Yeah. And
we've given everybody these stretch goals. So if you hear this before then and you want to come support us, that's the best time to do it. And we are on Facebook, facebook.com/onrack. That's a good place to find us.
And Twitter, we're at Oh No Podcast.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and thank you again very much for this wonderful interview. We will be in contact again. I do hope to hear your wonderful voices again soon. You take care of yourselves, guys, and have yourselves a absolutely amazing Saturday.
Thank
you so much.
We're about to go record.
Yeah. All right. You too.
Enjoy, guys. Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
You managed to listen to the Rum Boys talk on Random Urban Memories. Just like and subscribe where you can on all platforms.